Yes, we have interpreting. So all the young people are here now. So someone is wearing a mask, someone is not. Maybe I should wear it again. So how's my background? Can the interpreters hear you? Yeah, I just came. I'm wearing the mask because I just came. Yeah, maybe better to have a mask. Yeah, I'm going to take it off later on. Yes. The interpreters hear you. Dear interpreters, my name is Vladimir Karlov. I am the moderator. I'm going to speak partially. I'm going to read. Dear colleague, please do not speak and do not turn on your microphones, but we are starting.
Кто-то должен начать, когда
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I am very happy to welcome you all. My name is Dariana Maximova. I am Deputy Executive Director of the Northern Forum, and we today are starting on this forum, Northern Forum, starting this section dedicated to the Northern Sea route. It is one of the principal workshops for a global scale discussion, and I think that we're going to have a very interesting discussion, and I would like to introduce my colleagues who are here at our studio. And we have the representatives of our Yakutsk water transport and Igor Semyon Korkin, head of the Department of Water and Railway Transport of the Ministry of Transport of Yakutia. Next is Sergei Emelianov, first deputy of LORP company. And next, it's Alexander Vorotnikov, coordinator of the Expert Council of the Project Office for the Development of the Arctic, our guest from Moscow. And also, I would like to introduce our participants. We are going to have 8 reports from various regions of our country and from China. In general, so let me introduce everyone quick, and then I will give the floor to my co-moderator, Vladimir Kharlov, Vice President of the Association of NSR, member of the Council on Arctic and Antarctica at the Council of Federation, on the Federal Council of the Russian Federation. We have Dai Chan Lee, professor from the School of Hydroelectric Power Generation of Helsinki University. We also have Dmitry Korostelyov, acting deputy of chair of the government of Kamchatka. Sergei Breskin, head of the Center of Ice Hydrometeorological Information of the Institute of Arctic and Antarctic. Nikolai Kubyshkin, technical director of Arctic Shelf Consulting Company. Valeria Ruzakova, the leading analyst on international law at the MGIMO of Russia. Vyacheslav Shadrin, Vice President of the Association of Indigenous Peoples of Yakutia, researcher at the Institute of Humanities and Issues of the Indigenous People. All our members have been introduced, and now I would like to give the floor to my co-moderator, Vladimir Kharlov. Please welcome the Vice President of the Association of NSR, member of the Council on Arctic and Antarctic at the Federation Council of Russia. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you, Dariana. Thank you, all the organizers of the Northern Forum for inviting me and all of us. And it is an honor for me to be a moderator of
истоков
this
которого я
event,
стоял в 1992 году.
which
Ну, это было
I
так давно,
was
и
at the beginning
сейчас
of in
совсем другие времена. Предлагалась
1998
арктическая
and
политика,
even
но
earlier. It
не
was a long
поменялся
time
уровень
ago,
значимости
and the times have
Северного
changed,
морского пути.
but the
Я рад,
significance
что
of the
начинаем
Northern Sea
нашу
Route has not
секцию
changed
второго
since then.
международного
And I
форума
am
«Северный
happy
форум»
that
и
our
пленарное
second
заседание
section
транспортной
and the
инфраструктуры
plenary
на севере
session,
и в
transportation
Арктике
infrastructure in the
считаю
north
открытым.
and the Arctic is open
Я
now.
сейчас начну свое
And now
выступление.
I'm going to start my
Хотел бы сразу
speech.
всем нам
I would like
напомнить о том, что наш
to tell
регламент,
all of us that
который
we
нам
have a
установлен,
time
10
limit,
минут.
10
И как
minutes.
я понимаю,
And as I
Дарьяна, мы
understand,
вчера это обсуждали,
Dariana
после
discussed this
наших
with me
выступлений,
yesterday,
только после наших
and
выступлений
only
мы можем иметь достаточное
going
время
to
для
have
дискуссий.
a time for discussion only after all the reports are over.
Я с пониманием говорю сегодня о том,
And
что мы
I'm
сегодня в основном
saying that today we're mostly
русскоязычная
Russian
аудитория. Это
speaking.
несколько облегчает
This
наши
slightly
задачи.
eases our
Ну,
task,
мне лишь остается
and I now
приступить
only
к своему выступлению. И
have
я
nothing
хотел
else to
бы
do but to
сегодня
start my
выступить
speech.
со своим
And
вот
now I
сообщением
would like to
на
talk
тему.
with my speech.
Сейчас, секундочку. Легкое движение руки. Демонстрацию экрана, пожалуйста.
Just a
Дайте
second.
демонстрацию экрана, ребят. Демонстрация экрана. Я не могу пока показывать слайды. Окей? Да? Ну, я... Секундочку, я... Итак, тема моего выступления – это Северный морской путь, основные пути развития и международного сотрудничества в рамках основ.
So I'm going to talk about the main ways for developing international cooperation within the frames of the Russian geopolitics in the Arctic. So the Northern Sea Route is a historically developed transportation communication route that includes ports, port points, also sea routes in Barents, White and Pechorsky Seas. Also along the route itself of the Northern Sea Route, it is called the sector of Northern Sea Route and the Bering Sea Kamchatka sector. I am not going to talk a lot about the advantages of the Northern Sea route. We are here not to use internet information, but for these 10 minutes to talk deeply about our vision of the Association of the Northern Sea Route, headed by the Special Representative of the President, Artur Nikolaev Chelengarov, and also the position of the Council on the Arctic, in which I am a member of the Transportation and Logistics Committee. So the main factor is the orientation of our economy towards the extraction of natural resources and its transportation to industrially developed regions and for exports. We should understand the development of mineral resource centers, which form in connection with the transportation logistical centers of NSR, is also a factor for the development of the Russian Arctic. So a lot has been talked about the advantages.
из Юго-Восточной Азии в Европу.
You know, it's the shortest routes from Asia to Europe, and we know that the expenses go down when we use it, as well as the environmental impact. And the economy of the Northern Sea route is very interesting. But the difficulties in developing this NSR should also be understood by us. First of all, I want to begin talking about the fact that there is not a very big depth along the sea route. So this work on measuring the depths along the route has not finished. We know what happened in the 1990s. So the basically amount of cargo that was being transported at the NSR in the 1990s has catastrophically declined. And we know the reason for this. It's the collapse of the Soviet Union and the subsequent events. There are many straits there which make it difficult for navigation. And Sergei Bereskin will probably agree that there is an unpredictable ice condition there. And a person I knew, a captain of this ship that used to go through NSR, always used to call it as a big Russian roulette. And of course, there is also an extreme Arctic climate. I can't say much about this because we all understand it. And there is also an not fully defined borders of the economic zone of the Russian Federation in the Arctic. And because of this, there have been quite a lot of concessions, not well thought out concessions in 1997. And I think that this is the main point of the discussion, state of my report, and I'm going to slowly tell about this. What's the difficulty in this? So the Convention of the United Nations of 1982, Article 234, is called ice-covered areas. So I'm now slowly, for interpreters, going to speak so that our Chinese partners and our American, Canadian partners, Norwegian partners, Dutch, Danish, Japanese partners will understand what I'm saying. We Russians have made quite a lot of bad concessions, and now we can talk about this Article 234. It is like this.
Have the right to adopt and enforce non-discriminatory laws and regulations for the prevention, reductions, and control of marine pollution from vessels in ice-covered areas within the limits of the exclusive economic zone where particular severe climate conditions.
I think I will finish here. So this is the main idea of this article, and its main idea is that any state has the right to mask or to repeal some things that have been done previously. Well, basically what President Boris Yeltsin did in 1997, we can repeal it. So let's talk about positive moments now. Global warming. Yes. Well, it might not be fully considered a positive event, but global warming is a an event that creates huge new areas for industrial fishing. The Arctic and the Northern Sea route are the huge reserves of fresh water. The Northern Sea route, as the infrastructure artery of Russia, has huge deposits of natural resources in the shelf. And I worked at a number of areas where I know how it all works. But shelf, the sea shelf, we are just starting to develop it. And the Arctic shelf is a very difficult territory for development, and it's very fragile. The Arctic gives us new possibilities for new IT technologies. Yes, I am looking at the time, and hopefully I'll finish soon. So the main task of developing the shipping on the Northern Sea route has been voiced by the President of Russia, Mr. Putin. And it also says that we need to increase the cargo transported there up to 80 million tons until 2024. I'm very skeptical towards these plans because I don't think Mr. Putin, for example, expected this pandemic. And, well, it's difficult to plan for these unexpected events. 60–70% along the NSR is, as the data given to us by Manko, is resources, raw resources. But there are also signs that there's diversification. For example, our Tom's colleagues are starting to use ships of our vessels, of our partner, of Yeniseisk Shipping Corporation, and they are starting to use the rivers of Yakutia to also become an integral part for the increasing number of cargo transported there. And there is also possibility for the cooperation of Northeast Passage on Northwest passages. So maybe young people don't know about it, but we know about this line of Murmansk, Churchill, Canada, and it was very profitable, but then there has been many difficulties after that, and the Canadians had their difficulties in Churchill. But the idea of sharing information, exchanging our opinions is very important. We always think that, yeah, they always have some no problems at all, but then they do have, like the Canada and the US have some tension on the use of this Northwest Passage. And in conclusion, I want to say that the international cooperation, international understanding is a guarantee for the success of this big Arctic 8. And from next year, the Russian Federation is going to take the chairmanship of the Arctic Council, and I am going to go to Canada to work on the program for joint investment as well. So the Arctic is not a place for war, it's a place for cooperation. And thank you to you for listening to us, and I will be happy if on October 28th you will join our conference on Northern Sea route, online or offline, at the office of Sovcomflot. And the topic of the conference, you know it, and welcome to our conference. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all fruitful work at this plenary session 10 minutes, 50 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, co-moderator. You've shared very interesting information with us. It is also interesting for me. I'm here not only as an organizer, but also as a director of the Northern Forum, and I'm interested in the Arctic as well. And the Northern Sea Road for foreigners is really very important, and it sounds more for foreigners as a northwestern route. So not to lose our time, as it's been agreed before, we'll listen to all the reports and we'll have a time for discussion later. So the next reporter is Daichen Li from China, professor of the Hydro Energy School. Professor, please, the floor is given to you.
Прошу вас выключить микрофон убедительно. Да, я вас слышу, все хорошо, слышу.
Yes, we can hear you.
I want to share my content. How should I do? 没有，能谈吗？能共享吗？
Ваша презентация есть у нас.
We have your presentation. We will share it.
OK， 好，共享。OK， it's my pleasure to share my works. The title is a discussion on water resources, environment, and ecological compelling relationship between Northeast China and Russia Far East. I'm Daikang Lei from Harbin, China. Two parts. The first is the regional and geographic background. The first is the Polar Silk Road. It refers to the maritime channel that crosses the Arctic Circle and connects.
Уважаемый профессор Дайчин Ли,
Dear professor, when you talk about the next slide, please say next slide.
Okay. Next slide. Okay. The first regional and okay. The Polar Silk Road. Okay. I want to next. Oh, thank you. The Polar Silk Road refers to the maritime channel that crosses the Arctic Circle and connects the three major economic centers of East Asia, Western Europe, and North America. The Arctic waterway is a key component of it. Oh, thank you. Next. In July 2017, President Xi Jinping stated during his visit to Russia that he would carry out cooperation on the Arctic waterway and jointly build the Polar Silk Road. In January 2018, the State Control Information Office released the China's Arctic Policy White Paper, which clearly stated that China initiated the important cooperation initiative to jointly build the Silk Road economic belt and the 21st century maritime Silk Road. Next. In February 2019, according to the decree signed by Russian President Putin, the Ministry of Far East Development was renamed the Ministry of Far East and Arctic Development, adding new functions such as the formulation and implementation of the national policies in the economic and social fields of Arctic region. This just can connect with China Polar Silk Road. Okay, next one. The two presidents joint statement of the People's Republic of China and the Russia Federation on the development of comprehensive strategic partnership for a new era. Okay, next one. There is an area, we can name it Asia America Code area. It refers to Russia Far East, China Northeast, Mongolia, and America, some parts of America and Canada, just like the figure, the map. Okay. Next one. We can see the area with the closed relationship in the distance and with the similar climates. Okay. Okay, next one. And there are about 1,400 square kilometers and 3 billion people, and with 8 countries. Okay. The area and the population just list as the table. Okay. We can divide the area for some parts, just like the map shows. There are many sea area and some land area. Okay, next one. This area has some characters, similar characters. We can take them as geographic and nature characteristics and 这个 response patterns to climate and so on. We can discuss such issues in the area. Okay. Our group do some works just like the following. Next one. There is a route we named Dalian to Taxi Line. Next one. Okay, next slide. Okay, just like the yellow light from Dalian, China to Arctic taxi, we can
У нас, видимо, проблема со связью, я так поняла, да?
I'm afraid we're having problems with the connection. Dai Chanli, can you hear us? Are you here? Okay.
Ага, хорошо. Профессор, продолжайте, пожалуйста. Но я напоминаю, как модератор.
Professor, yes, please continue. And I would like to remind you that you have several minutes left.
Да, говорите, профессор.
Please
thank you.
speak. Continue.
The light, just like the yellow light from China Dalian to Arctic taxi, two parts. The south parts from Dalian to Yakutsk can use railway, and from Yakutsk to taxi can use the river road. Okay. Next slide. The road can show as the map, like the red road. Okay. The second work we have done is in last year. Some Chinese experts come to Yakutsk and complete the 12th conference on water input regions notice. Okay, next slide. And some days ago, we held another conference in the land, just discuss the hydrogeography of food regions of Asia, America, cold regions. Okay, next one. some works shown like the slide we have done from 2017 to 2019. Okay, next slide. And there are two students, graduate students, studied in Eastern Federal University. They graduate from Heilongjiang University, China. Okay. Okay. We have some two international cooperation agrees between the two universities. Okay, next work. Next. And we have hosted two international conferences, series between us. Okay. Next slide. In the future, we want to launch a survey plan for the characteristics regions and conduct academic seminar exchanges. For example, International Symposium on Cold Region Development, Hydrogeography of Asia America in Cold Regions, and the Polar Silk Road. Next. We also want to exchange graduate students and apply for national project support.
Профессор
Okay,
Дайчинлей,
next page.
1 минута.
Dear professor, you have only 1
Oh.
minute left.
Okay, that's all. That's all. Thank you. Thank you. Next page. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Простите меня. Да, большое спасибо.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we can't listen to you for longer, but I hope that in the future we'll share our presentations with each other, and it's important that we have discussion after all the presentations. So, dear professor, we'll have a discussion in the end of this event. And you have asked a very important question. So now let me introduce our next reporter. It's Dmitry Korostelyov, acting deputy of the chair of the government of Kamchatka. He has a very interesting report, as Kamchatka is participating in the development of the Northern Sea Road.
Доброе время суток, уважаемые коллеги.
Good afternoon,
Слышно
dear
меня?
colleagues.
Нормально?
Can you hear me
С
well?
Камчатки. Спасибо. Уважаемая Дарьяна Дмитриевна, уважаемый Владимир
Dear
Галактионович.
Дарьяна Дмитриевна, Vladimir Galaktionovich, as Mr. Vladimir has shared a very important report with us, which emphasized the importance of the Northern Sea Road. Of course, I won't talk much about it. I have a presentation, and please share it with us. It is very short. So, the capital of Kamchatka, as I remind you for all the participants, it is situated in the cross of different routes, which connects New Zealand, Northern Africa, America. To show you all the processes, I'd like to say that Petropavlovsk-Kamchatka is situated on the shore of the bay, where water never freezes and navigation is all year round. And in this This bay is the second bay, the largest bay in the world, and its depth is 28 meters, and the area of this bay is 250 square kilometers. We think that the prospect of development of this passage is very important, since it will transform our economics. Kamchatka increases the routes, the development of the routes, and which will help us to create a sustainable northern transport system. And I'd like to emphasize the role of Kamchatka. And here you have also mentioned it already, it's international cooperation. For example, in cargo traffic to different regions of Russia, it will help the shipbuilding in different territories. We're working with our colleagues from St. Petersburg, from Arkhangelsk, from Murmansk, and we're developing our cooperation. The priority to develop Kamchatka is the priority to develop the transport system of Kamchatka and to increase the potential of the Northern Sea Route. It makes possible integration of our territory with one big regional area, as it will be included into the transport system of the Far Eastern region and Pacific region as well. We emphasize the importance of development of NSR to create new areas of economics, to increase tourism, and to increase the production of agriculture. To solve the problem of products, we need to cooperate with large businesses and with investments, as they will help us to recycle and export products. I'd like to talk about the Northern Sea Route and its importance to the economics of Kamchatka. On September the 8th, from Kamchatka, we sent a light ship. It went through the Northern Sea Route. We cooperated with Rosatom, and it reached successfully St. Petersburg. And 5 tons of Kamchatka fish are in St. Petersburg now. And the main problem is that most of the resources are from Central Russia, and the main problem for us is to transport fish there. And we have lack of refrigerators, which makes shipping very expensive. So it is a strategic direction to make Kamchatka the main port hub, as to organize cargo shipping through Kamchatka. And we are working with our colleagues from Arkhangelsk, St. Petersburg, so that we had this constant route. We have support of the President of Russia, Mr. Vladimir Putin, who gave his orders on June the 7th as a result of the governor of Kamchatka, his message. And with Rosatom and Rosfishing and the Ministry of Agriculture of the Russian Federation, we continue this work. Next slide, please. We have several projects, so it is important to develop the shorelines on the Northern Sea Route, to create port hubs and the ending points of the route. It's in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, in Murmansk. Nowadays, we have all year round, never freezing port, which is close to the international waterways. And on the territory of Kamchatka, we have big innovative project, Novatec, to create light natural gas. It will help us to ship this gas from Yamal through Northern Sea Route to the Kamchatka Peninsula. Through the terminals in Kamchatka, it will be reloaded to other gas vessels to be shipped to other countries. The cargo capacity is more than 10 million tons, and we expect the first ship to go there in 2022. In the frameworks of the investitions program, we have terminal Seroglaska. It is developing till 2028. We have different ports, and in 2020 we started to develop this seaports. So it will enable us to get products through Northern Sea Route. And we are reconstructing Petropavlovsk Verf. We are creating refrigerators there. I'd like to show you that we're interested in creating in Kamchatka International Port Hub. In general, we estimate the potential of Kamchatsky Krai and development of Northern Sea Route is to create a transit for cargoes from Northern America to Northern Europe through Northern Sea Route. It's cargo shipping through Northern Sea Route to Far East. And to lower the seasonal traffic on a Trans-Siberian route. As Vladimir Galaktionovich has also already mentioned about the challenges of the Northern Sea Route, I won't talk much about them. It is clear that we need to create a certain car operator. We need to organize projects, and all the ports of the Northern Sea Routes need certain infrastructures, including digital models. It is a question of IT technologies and marine safety. We need to develop sea ports, and it is important for us to equip everyone with modern vessels and to create operating navigative line or route, which would help our fishing companies to make their products worth it. And dear colleagues, I'd like to conclude that Northern Stewart is a driver of the development of the Far East and the whole country, and it becomes base for bringing together all the regions of our country. And thank you very much for attention and for letting me represent Kamchatka on this international level. And I wish everyone successful conference. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dmitry Anatolyevich. Thank you for joining us. Especially you are one of our active regions of our Northern Forum. We appreciate your activity very much, and even in the terms of representing in the shortest time such an important report. And I'd like to emphasize that since we're in Yakutsk now, that your governor Vladimir Solodov would like to send him our greetings from the Northern Sustainable Development Forum, and thank you very much for your participation. I think we can ask my co-moderator to say several words.
Мы уже прослушали 2 доклада, и мы договаривались, что мы будем... Валерий Галактионович, вы с нами?
Vladimir Kharlov, are you with us? So, just a few words of comments.
Вас не слышно, микрофон.
We can't hear you. Once again, I'm sorry for these technical difficulties. Dmitry Korostelyov, thank you very much. And thus that the chair of the government know that the first cruise line was finished yesterday from Another to Kamchatka, and our French partner Panam on board the ship Boreal with 24 turrets, and they started implementing their project, and we hope that you will join us and you will talk at our conference on October 29. So everything was good when I was speaking, yes? Just a second. Can you hear us? We can hear you here. Maybe there is some issue. So yes, everything is good, yeah. And the questions that I have is that it's a very good idea of Kamchatka transport center, a transport hub. And maybe you should present this strategy in a clearer way, because you are the point where the cargo is transported from ice-class ships to river-class ships. And I'm very glad to hear that my Arkhangelsk is taking part in this. And we can be, I think that we will be able to discuss this a bit more at the end. Hopefully you will be with us, or will you be leaving? I am very happy for our talk, and I will try to be online. Can I get your email so that we can invite you to our conference, online or offline? I don't know yet. Yes, I will send it to you through Dariana. And when I answer about the structural way of our projects, due to the participation of the Council of Federation, we had a round table with senators, and the first solution was to develop this integrated program for the development, the whole port infrastructure within the frames of the NSR. And yes, we have this recommendation of this roundtable for our government. Thank you. Our Japanese partners are very active. We have about 18 representatives, 5 companies. We are also talking about an in situ meeting at your place in Kamchatka. It's going to be expensive, but maybe we can organize this and maybe we can resolve this. So let's talk about this later on. And now I think we should continue this later. Thank you for your speech. It was very interesting. Thank you very much, our colleagues. We continue our reports, and our next speaker is the head of the Center of Ice Hydrometeorological Information of the Institute of the Arctic and Antarctic, Sergei Prestkin. Please turn on my presentation.
Мы можем, да, если сам Сергей Владимирович
У
хочет.
I cannot do it, unfortunately.
Это ваша презентация?
Is this your presentation on screen right now? Did you turn it on yourself?
Да, презентация включена, можно начинать доклад.
Yes, your presentation is online. Please start.
Тогда мы выключаем
Oh,
презентацию.
there it is.
Пожалуйста, помогите нам. Да, все, ваша презентация включена.
Okay, we can see your presentation.
Мы видим её.
We can see it.
Да, Сергей Владимирович, мы все хорошо видим.
Yes, we can see everything. Yes, so this is my presentation. I hope you can see it. You can hear me as well. So this is my topic, the system of hydrometeorological service for navigation in the Arctic. And the system that was created in the 1980s is now developing by introducing new information and communication technologies, finding new sources of information, and so on. So these are some of the basic ideas so that we can have a logical idea of what's going on. And later on, I want to say that in the Arctic, the main barrier for cargo transportation is ice coverage. And the main risks are connected with this ice. You can hear me, yes?
Да, все хорошо. Все, спасибо. Все хорошо. Продолжайте.
So the second point is that in recent years there has been an exponential growth of cargo being transported along the Northern Sea route, and the plan for its development, this growth is going to continue. And from this, the next point, that with the increase in the number of cargo and vessels in the NSR, the risk connected with sea ice increase a lot. One of the risks, there are many of them, is connected with the presence with the fact that this cargo transportation is barely profitable because there are many additional expenses connected with the need to use icebreakers and to increase the ice-going class of vessels, and so on. But these risks, economic risks and other types of risks, can be significantly reduced by using the tactic of selected ice navigation, which means that according to the results of monitoring the ice coverage, the easiest route is selected. So the feature of this ice is that it's not homogeneous, and there are always some routes on which the speed of navigation is going to be much lower than the average speed in other regions. So the selection of the route to navigate will significantly ease the navigation in ice and reduce expenses. So this has been used extensively, these non-homogeneous features of ice in last century, in the 1980s, when the cargo transported along the Northern Sea route increased a lot. And there were two main goals for this. First is the correct berthing of icebreakers, so their correct positioning, because the keeping icebreakers all along the route is not profitable, it's expensive, and that's why it's necessary to find where they should be placed. And this placing will change a lot because the ice cover will change a lot. And in places where this navigation can be done without the assistance of icebreakers is the optimate routes. So the basis for this is the ice information that has been constantly generated by the system of Meteorological Service. And this system is now called North-Sever, or an automated ice information system, ice monitoring system. And it was one of the subsystems. I am returning to the situation that existed in the Soviet Union. So this was part of the large, huge system for provision navigation in the Arctic, which included the icebreakers, a navigational, hydrographical system, and a port system. And because all these systems were under a single management, the efficiency was provided. And all this technical capacity allowed for all this cargo transportation. Unfortunately, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, this system also collapsed. Basically, the systems themselves remained, but the connections between them were disrupted. And until very recently, these connections were not restored. Each system was by itself. So about 2 years ago, work started on restoring this system, that is, in restoring connections between these subsystems, the ice navigation system, the navigational hydrographical system, and port provision. They were all given under a single management, the Rosatom State Corporation. And the biggest news is on the 18th September, that is very recently, the government has approved new rules for navigation along the Northern Sea route. And point 2 of this, Article 2, says that Rosatom State Corporation is going to create the main base for sea operations that will work on organizing the navigation of vessels along the NSR. And this system, the system of North, well, it has not been given to Rosatom. It's still under Rosgidromet. That is why there's a kind of a paradox, because not all the systems have been integrated together due to this. And that's why I want to say that this system, the hydrometeorological monitoring system, which is extremely important, it is still not connected back to all the other systems. And a few words about the system itself. And here you can see this scheme. It's all the sources of information, different sources of information, which are all collected and given to the territorial departments and centers. And then it's all given to the Arctic and Antarctic Institute, where all this data is processed and new information products are produced, which are the ice maps, forecasts, and navigation recommendations. And, well, we can make forecasts, even though some speakers were saying that you cannot forecast the future. And also recommendations are issued for selecting the most optimal routes. And then all of this information is disseminated among the consumers to increase the efficiency of their work. And here you can see the goals and the tasks of this system, as well as the consumers, which are mostly shipping companies and federal and state bodies of executive power. So what does this automated ice monitoring and information system include? It is a kind of a heart of the automated system, which manages automatically all these processes and organizes it. 2 minutes. So there are also automated working places, automated software and technology complex, and also communication hubs. A very important point is that at its current state, the system can provide an personalized information to every consumer in real time, basically. And so all of this information is customized, taking into account all the possible ways this information can be transferred to consumers and what exactly can be transferred. Other foreign ice information systems have no such features at the moment for personalizing the information disseminated to consumers. We are like the first in this in the world. But to work on this, we needed to automate everything. And this technological process are organized as an information production route, which is shown here in this pyramid. At the bottom is the raw data, and then we have the results of the analysis, and then the forecast for ice. There are long-term forecasts and short-term forecast. So it includes the age of the ice, its homogeneity, its drifting characteristics, and so on. And in the end, we have the recommendations for choosing the most optimal routes for shipping and navigation. So what are our raw data, sources of data? So the main data is, of course, comes from satellites. And We also use the observation in polar station, very little aviation monitoring, as well as monitoring from seagoing vessels. But aviation is very expensive. That is why we don't use it much, and we don't have the necessary infrastructure at the moment. And of course, a very important moment is diagnostic model calculations. So if there is no information from observation, and it does happen due to, for example, cloud coverage, there is a necessary for calculating the possible data. So these are the main satellite systems that we use for creating ice maps. I'm not going to talk much about this, but you should note that this is 100% foreign satellites, not Russian satellites of distant monitoring of Earth. Well, we're working on resolving the issue of maybe launching some Russian satellites. So the data is received at these mobile points of information collection. It's, for example, in Berezhnov Barents settlement, and there are these 3 mobile collection stations. And here you can see this blue circle. It's the zone of monitoring from this point, from the settlement of Barentsburg. And you can see that it basically sees the whole, almost the whole Northern Ocean, Arctic Ocean, except for some part in Chukotka Sea. And the second part of the system is in St. Petersburg, which can only see the western part of the Arctic Ocean. And another important point is that this point is near the point where the orbits of low satellites cross each other, and it means that we receive information quite often from it, basically during every rotation of the satellite. And another important part of this system is the subsystem of creating information products. It has 3 modules. The first is the ARMS, the automated systems for analysis. So we have automated processing system also, which creates the products without a human input. And then we have this analytics, which allows the development of these recommendations for selecting navigation routes. So all the information is exchanged through a single store of data. So this is the scheme here, which shows how all of this working, this automated system, and how they exchange information with the single data storage. And there's also the manager of events, event manager, which controls all of these events, controls all of this system. And another important element of the system is the visualization of the information. And it's not visualized not only as pictures, but also as layers for the users of our system. For vessels, sea vessels, it's 2 systems: the electronic navigational information system, which we use. It's a D-card ice navigator and Transat Navy Sailor. So the heart of the system is the automated system of managing the technological processes, so I'm not going to talk
Да, я
about it
думаю,
because we have not enough time.
просто вашу презентацию потом передадим участникам, да?
We will send your presentation to participants later on. Yes, you can see everything there later. So I would like to, the last point that I want to say is what kind of information products on ice is produced by this system. First of all, for the Northern Sea port, it's the annotated satellite images, detailed ice maps, the review ice maps, also forecast ice maps for on short term, medium term, and long term, as well as the recommendation. And here I'm just going to show you the slides of these information products quickly. So we've seen the annotated maps, and here you can see the ice maps as pictures, and they overlay the navigation system. So these are the forecasts. They show 4 types of forecasts. It's the first is the distribution of ice. Second is the strengthening of ice and weakening of it, which actually impacts the navigation a lot. Also the other systems. And here you can see the recommendations for choosing the routes of navigation. They can be against the background of satellite images or maps and so on. So this is what I wanted to show you. And the last what I want to say is that at present this system, the system server, fully meets the requirements of its users who are now working on the Northern Sea route. But as the expansion, as I said in the beginning, of this navigation on NSR continues and quite fast, the system needs to be modernized. First of all, like modernization, upgrading of the software that is used there, and the return of its distributed character. And at present, it's all managed by one institute, but within the frames of modernization that was started in 2021, this system will be connected to territorial centers, including Yakutsk Department of Hydrometeorology and Monitoring, which the organizers of the conference will talk about. And we are going to include this. Okay, thank you. It's a very important topic, how to monitor the ice cover and what kind of technology is needed, and you all know this. And maybe very briefly, Valery Galaktionovich can say a few words on these previous 2 speeches.
So thank you for your presentation. It is very sad that we didn't have enough time, and I hope next time you will have a chance to report with a pretty similar topic on the 29th of October. Is that right? Now I'd like to choose another topic. It's about the experience of extra early and extra late shipping of the gas. Without science, in your reports, you have mentioned it, it is impossible for us to move anywhere since the Institute of the Arctic and Antarctic was led by Sergei Makarov. It is the institute that benefits the northern sword. I think some parts of the report are very discussable, and sometimes so how balanced is the desire of the Rosatom and your desire of very thoroughly chosen watchword? Let's discuss this later. What are we leading to? Are we thinking about not using icebreakers anymore in the future? Or is it a compromise between the ice ships? I'd like to discuss this issue later today. I can say now we can't stop using icebreakers since the system of hydro meteor equipment is not always an alternative of icebreakers. However, it allows us to minimize the need of icebreakers, and that's why building icebreakers will not satisfy the need of hydrometeor information if we used it. So to develop both systems, as I said before, they need to be connected. Icebreakers should work, not only lead the ships along the whole route, but they should monitor on separate parts of the route. Otherwise, we won't have enough of the icebreakers to lead them, especially when talking about the ships going in winter to the east. So, dear colleagues, let's continue our meeting. So the next reporter is Kubyshkin Nikolai, Technical Director of the Arctic Shelf Consulting Company. Please, the floor is given to you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I will present my report, Fast Ice Operations in the Gulf of Ob and Condition of Enhancing Intensivity of Navigation, Experience of the Late Decade. I'm from the Arctic and Antarctic Institute. Please, could you show my presentation? Thank you. So Fast Ice Operation is shipping with watercraft different cargoes to the remote regions of the Arctic shelf with their unloading through the fast ice. Such operations is a kind of raiding, unloading on the shelf, but not only with low swimming crafts. Here we can use the fast ice that will deliver cargo with land transport, as well as it happens on normal ports. And the main advantage of fast ice operation is it depends less on the weather, which decreases the time of unloading of the cargo on ice, unlike the unloading on water. But it has its certain services. Of course, it's hydrometeorology, beforehand preparation of the fast ice. In the Soviet time, we had very active Yamal operations when watercraft delivered cargo on the western part of the Yamal Peninsula. Nowadays, the geography of such fast ice operations spreads in the west on the Schmidt Cape, and the main attention is paid to the Gulf of Ob over the last decade. In 2011, we started delivering cargoes to build Sabet port. And in this region, such operations were happening from 2011 to 2015. From 2015 till today, fast ice is used to provide works of oil terminal in the Kamenny Cape. In 2017 to 2020, every year the operations are taking place through the fast ice in this ice season. Can you hear me? So 18 ships were unloaded. Such amount is a great number for the history of modern Russia. On fast ice, unloading on the fast ice. So the Gulf of Ob is 800 kilometers long. Its width is 60 kilometers in different places. In the very north of the Gulf, there is a ice hole, and such sustainable fast ice decreases the risks of ice movement and its cracking. So it is very important to make it safe. Thanks to the fast ice, the laws and the requirements allow to park ships on a 0.5 mile distance, which makes the preparation of the fast ice easier. The period of fast ice along the width of the Gulf is one of the important characteristics of this region. So the forming of fast ice in the Gulf of Ob during the ice forming period is happening from the south to the north. And in springtime, the breaking of the ice sheet is happening both in the south and in the north, and the middle part stays there for longer. And in the northern part of the Gulf, the ice hole is still there, and the southern border we had some troubles with connections. Can you hear me now well? Yes. So observations over the year show us that the southern border of the hole, the northern part of the Ob Gulf, are more or less stable. It shows us that the southern board of the hole never went lower than polar station Tambay. And over the last years, in 2016, 2017, and 2019, the border of the first ice from shore to shore in March and May was built in the more southern part of the Sabet port, which is unusual. In the work of Popov and other his colleagues, they analyzed different changes over the average time. Please, can you show me my slide? So this observation shows us that from 1997 to 2006, the board of this hole has always been going down to the south. Next slide, please. And it is a natural process. At the same time, over the last years, to this natural process, it has influenced the cargo traffic in the Gulf of Ob. If before 2014 the navigation in Gulf of Ob was very episodic, from 2013 the navigation became all year round, starting from the Sabet port. And from 2013, tankers can navigate over the whole year. And from 2019 and 2020, we started all year round navigation from Salmanovskaya oil and gas complex. So over the last years, the Gulf of Ob became a very active route for watercrafts. Over the last ice season in 2019 and in 2020, we had positive anomalies in the border of the first ice. So till the first days of March, the borders of sustainable first ice were situated in the southern part of the Sabet port. So please, 1-2 minutes. This year, we have very bad connection. So let me finish my report. So in general, you have my presentation. There are only one page left, and because of the bad connection, I won't keep you long. Now we can hear you well when your presentation is off. So maybe we could still have a discussion. And now the next reporter is Goritnikov Alexander Mikhailovich. He's in our studio now. He's an expert from the project office of Arctic Development. He came here from Moscow. This office is one of the organizers of our platforms. And now I'd like to give the floor to Alexander Goritnikov.
Please turn on the presentation. for Alexander Goritnikov.
Все, увидел. Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to speak a little bit about other things. There have been very interesting reports by speakers, and I would like to talk a little bit about the organizational and financial models for developing the Northern Sea route, and especially considering the development of the Arctic strategy of Yakutia.
А сделайте, пожалуйста, презентацию уже большую.
Давайте следующий слайд.
Okay, next slide.
Смотрите, в общем-то, какая
So you can see what is the situation if you have read or watched the strategy for the development of the Arctic of Yakutia. The innovative scenario for the development of the Arctic of Yakutia has a good term: creation of the sea complex of the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia. Not many people noticed it, and from my point of view, Yakutia is like leaping to become a sea region of Russia. And not now, but maybe in like 10, 15 years. The strategy is until 2035. We will speak about Yakutia as a sea region, just like Arkhangelsk, Murmansk, and Vladivostok, and so on. So for developing this complex, it looks very systemic in the strategy. So maybe you know or don't know, the whole Arctic north of Yakutia is supplied through river basins. So all the rivers that flow into the Arctic Ocean, they are all used for the economy of the Republic. So in the Republic, there is work going on. For example, the Zhatai shipyard, which you know about, which is going to construct ships for work. And in the Republic, there is going to be a port of Tixi, which has two purposes. So there are many delegations that fly there, like one just returned from there and another is going there. So the port is becoming a very important military, strategically important site for Russia. So there's going to be a big base for the Northern Fleet of Russia. And while all these territories is going to give this big economic boost. In addition to that, there is a development of the port, which is located near the territory of Chukotka. Next slide, please. We can continue. So there is a systemic development of the sea side of Yakutia. And there's a question. So how all of this will be financed? Even though we have a program of the Russian Federation, a federal project for the development of the NSR, for the development of port infrastructure, but if you look at them, they mostly don't have much financing from the state. They are mostly expected to be financed by private investors, and to be able to use the funds from private investors, there is a specific mechanism that exists. So the easiest and the simplest mechanism is the private-public partnership. There are two laws in Russia that concern this. It's the PPP law and the here on this slide, you can see the main participants of these projects. So who takes part in these PPP projects? It's the private enterprises, it's the banks, it's the state. And it is here so that you can understand. Well, I want to say that there's also municipal authorities. So here on this slide, you can see the traditional, the simplest scheme of interaction between the participants of PPP and concession models and non-concession models. So this is like the typical scheme. So why PPP, especially the concessions, are beneficial for the state? So the main thing here is that the site itself, according to a concession agreement, will remain a state property, will be owned by the state or the local municipality. It's not going to be private unless it is written down clearly in the agreement. And at the same time, it allows for the resolution of many problems, like saving state money, public money, increasing the investment and social attraction of the region, and efficient implementation of state goals. And one of these projects, the examples, is the construction of a bridge over the river Lena. Near Yakutsk. So when I worked in Bank, the largest project that I structured was the project of building a bridge in Udmurtia over, and it included 3 bridges in one project. So here you can see a very interesting graph. You can discuss it or not. And this is a new project, new way to implement the PPP. There is an order of the president for regions to implement this in their local legislation. And this is a tool for increasing, for financing. Well, it is used to increase the tax bases. And when this project is implemented, then the amount of taxes collected increase. It is used all over the world, but there's no proper example in Russia yet, even though there have been attempts to adopt laws related to this. And here, in accordance with the strategy for the development of the Arctic until 2035, we need to build a big number of ports along the NSR. And we are now implementing a large project in Murmansk, development of Murmansk transportation node hub. And there's going to be development of Tiksi port, as well as the construction of a port in Indiga city, Port Pivek, and 2 more ports in Chukotka. So what I wanted you to note here, so when we are going to work on these projects, the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia will implement the project. It will be very important for these projects to use various models of PPP or quasi-PPP. So it can be contracts of lifetime or financing through taxation, or basically many different models that can be used in this one holistic approach. And what I also wanted to point out is that when we talk about the development of the NSR investment projects connected with it, we forget about 2 things. in the world, the environmental situation has changed completely, and there are so-called principles of Poseidon, which all the large companies that work on sea routes follow. So you maybe heard about it. So almost all large sea companies have said that they're not going to transport their cargo through the Northern Sea route. Why? Because like the principles of Poseidon principles are not followed by Russia in this NSR. So if we are not going to follow these principles, we're going to have lots of problems in the future. And the second point, if we are going to finance the NSR projects for the development of coastal infrastructure and for the development of transportation on the NSR, it is necessary to follow the principles of green financing. Whole of Europe is now using green financing, started from the principle of green deals. So Vneshekonombank has developed all the rules of green deals and transfer to green financing. There's also a legislation that is being adopted on green financing in Russia. So all the projects will be financed in accordance with this principle. So not many people know that this is already used in Russia. And there's an easy example on this slide. It's the Societe Generale group. Basically, it's the Rosbank Bank of Russia. Has given a credit for a huge project for constructing large tonnage tankers that will be working on natural gas fuel and developing our own sea macro complexes, like constructing ships in Jatai. We should look at how to use this principle so that we will not be sanctioned by Europe or other countries as the people who do not follow the green financing and Poseidon principles. And here you can see the example of Murmansk. So many maybe know of this project when some terminals are to be transferred to the other coast. And it's done in accordance with the concession agreement. And there's investment of about 25 billion rubles. And the project is holistic, integrated. It not only includes terminals, but also the whole transportation infrastructure, including a railroad. So, doing this project in Murmansk, the world experience is being used. The construction of a port. So, it is all connected with the whole infrastructure. And these last two slides I want to talk about. There is a mechanism of PPP which is called a lifetime cycle, where you do not build a site, you buy a service. For example, here is Moscow Metro, Moscow Underground. So Metro doesn't buy the trains and carriages, but it leases them basically. So this is the last slide. You can see, next slide, yeah. Here you can see a second issue, provision of power to all these port structures and servicing structures. And for this you have energy supply contract, and it's also a quasi-PPP contract, and it also can be implemented as a project with state participation or by private companies. There's like big experience of using this in Russia, and I think it can be used in the Arctic. So the tools of interaction between the state and business quite a lot. There are quite many of them. And all these ways to do it have been tried out before, and in Yakutia we can use them. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander, for your report. And now our next speaker. So we have two more speakers. So the next one is Rozakova Valeria, the leading analyst of international law of MGIMO of Mid-Russia from the Russian Foreign Ministry. So thank you very much. And with your permission, I would like to say that I am the leading analyst of the international in the field of international geopolitics, and I'm also a doctorate postgraduate student. And I would like to talk about research that I'm doing. I'm preparing a dissertation for a doctorate, and it's going to be more academic than practical reports that I have heard. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for this opportunity to listen to all these reports and for the fact that all these experts will listen to me. And if you have any comments, I'll be happy to hear them. So my topic is the international maritime law, and Mr. Velizhanin is my scientific supervisor, and I am working on developing sea maritime technologies, the issues of developing technologies and maritime technologies is one of the key issues for the development of the Russian Arctic. And it is very important for the development of the Northern Sea route. So it's necessary to understand that special requirements for the level of technology appear due to the fragility of Arctic ecosystems. And in connection with this, I would like to look at detail on how we can follow and we can improve the following of the part of Article 14 of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. And because the convention was established in the 1970s, the original discussion was about a dialogue between the developed and developing countries. And in short, if we talk about this, then for the developing countries, the interest was in getting the opportunity to receive economically beneficial technologies, affordable technologies, which would allow them to develop sea resources. And for the developed countries, the benefit was, first of all, getting financing for these technologies, for selling these technologies. And on the meeting point of this interest, we had this new law, which we can see in Chapter 14 of this convention. So in the beginning, it was first talked about the most efficient economic technologies. And one of the issues that we need to see is that the definition of sea technology is not given there, because first, there is an indirect reference of what can be understood as a maritime technology. And we can see this find in Part 2 of Article 226 of the Convention, and which shows that the cooperation between the states can be in many different areas, such as like sea research, maritime resource exploitation, and so on. So the technologies that can be used in this field, well, they can be considered to be a sea technology. But the article says that this list is not closed. So the UN Secretary General at the Third Convention on Maritime Law said that the technology is explained as the transfer of technologies and control of it using the rational mechanisms. So, and he listed 6 possible ways for this. It's the extraction of oil and gas in the sea, on the shelf, and sea cables, sea infrastructure, undersea mechanisms, undersea equipment, as well as creation of fresh water, desalinization. So if we look at this part of the convention, for example, in 1981, Yusen Alexander has pointed out 4 areas of work where sea technologies, maritime technologies can be used, and inclusion to extraction of natural resources and environmental protection. He also talked about fishing as one of these activities. And we also need to notice take into account the guidelines of the International Oceanographic Committee, and there is data and information on sea research. There's also like all these criteria, standards, all the information and data and the equipment for getting observation and for also getting samples from the sea, and laboratory equipment, computer equipment, and everything connected with this. So basically, this term is much, much larger in scope, and it also includes not only things in itself, but also methods. And the sea technology is not limited by the most efficient boring equipment, but it can also be understood much more widely, including many other things. And it is also clear that in addition to economic, industrial use of these technologies, there is also an environmental use. And we can identify such a thing as additional technologies, accessory technologies, which are the technologies for supporting the economy when working with maritime technologies. And the main understanding of this is the use of the new technologies for providing an ecologically, environmentally friendly and safe work. And also technologies for analyzing, collecting, and processing data. And this makes it necessary to transfer sea technologies for preserving the environment. And the project that we are talking about, the agreement on preserving and sustainable use of maritime biological diversity in neutral waters, there is much more discussion about this, including the transfer of maritime technologies. And if we talk about the UN General Assembly resolution for the transformation of the world, for the sustainable development, and chapter 41 there talks about the need for new tools for sustainable development, and they have recognized that this instrument is going to include the mobilization of financial resources and increasing the capacity and transfer of new technologies and environmentally friendly technologies for all the states on mutual agreement basis. That is why we can see that in general now there is a movement like transfer from the original concept of this idea into the environmentally friendly concept. So the convention itself has not changed, and its text is still the same, but the legal framework and logic that is there for using the mechanisms of transferring these maritime technologies and the interpretation of Chapter 14 is now moving towards the environmental efficiency. And it's very necessary to point out that the legal understanding of this in relation to environmental friendliness is connected with all these environmental geosystems that are there of the specific region of the ocean, and as well as the many different needs and requirements of different regions. and the regional specific for transfer of these technologies, such as in Western Africa or like the Pacific Ocean or Indian Ocean, is now being studied by the authors from many different researchers. And of course, another important region is the Arctic, especially considering its environmental fragility, which will create additional issues and problems for developing technologies and for using them in an environmentally friendly way. So we can conclude that the practical use of technologies at present is necessary to be done at the necessary environmental level, and it is necessary for providing the environmental friendliness of the industrial projects and also for the cooperation in the Arctic, especially in the region which is limited by the land of many states around it, because it's the smallest ocean in the world, and of course all the states that are there are interested in providing, well, they're basically interested in developing the region and doing it in an environmentally friendly way. And the transfer of this maritime technology should take into account the natural characteristics of the Arctic, and it should be done on a specific level that is specialized for the Arctic. And it should be based on the existing legislation, legal framework on maritime law. Thank you.
И у нас остался последний докладчик.
And we have our last speaker, which is Mr. Shadrin Vyacheslav. He's the Vice President of the Association of the Indigenous People of the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia and the researcher of the Institute for the Humanities and the Issues of the Indigenous People of the North.
Good evening, dear participants. Tonight, I would like to talk about a very important issue for all of us. It is the issues connected to the indigenous people. And I'd like to draw your attention to the discussions that have been going on over the last 10 years when discussing the development of the Northern Sea Route. However, not many of speakers talk about the development of the well-being of the indigenous people. So first of all, this is connected to the historic analogues when in 1932 was created the administration of the Northern Head, and when they were in charge of the Arctic people, and they spoke about helping indigenous people when developing the Northern Sea Route. And even they discussed such issues as organizing the work of herding land and farms of the, as well as fishing and other aspects, as well as cultural development of the indigenous people. It all was included back then into such administration, which was in charge of the social development of the northern territories. However, nowadays, the Northern Sea Route has no such aims. And the main negative points of the Northern Sea Route are that NSR will help only industrial routes. Could you please share the presentation so that we can see on full screen? So let me try again. How can you see full screen now? No, unfortunately
А,
not.
да? А, тогда вы выключите, пожалуйста, презентацию, потому что у нас есть ваша презентация.
Oh, so could you turn off your presentation because we have our presentation here. Okay.
Теперь как у нас? Вот, и говорите, пожалуйста, следующий слайд, когда...
So please say next slide. So I have mentioned historic analogues. So the main negative aspects of the NSR you can includes 3 points. First is despite the international trade, which is far from for the indigenous people of the Arctic, there are 3 points. NSR serves only industrial development. For example, the Sabeta port and other ports, it promotes the development of industrial projects on the territory of the indigenous people, which can lead to the degradation of the land, which will worsen the ethnocultural situation. The second negative point is, especially in Chukotka, is the negative influence on the sea hunting. You know that Chukchi and Eskimo they hunt for whales and seals, as well as aleuts on Commodore Islands. And if the sea traffic will increase in this northern seaboard, it will make it worse. And the third point is the worsening of ecology. For example, many vessels use bad equipment, which affects the sea, and as well these vessels affect fish in the sea on the shelves. So all these negative expectations, since the NSR is not on its full operation. So what are the positive expectations, the stereotypes of the NSR for the indigenous people? So first of all, everyone hopes for the development of the socioeconomic situation. For example, in Yakutia, it will touch upon 2 regions, Bolunsky and Nizhno-Kolymsky Uluses, where the ports will be open again, which will open new jobs, workplaces, and the infrastructure will start to develop, which will allow these ports to operate. And of course, the navigation, the product of these regions. So, as you know, people in the remote areas, they have troubles with getting food, with getting products. And back in the 30th, during the Soviet Union, when the whole country was going through the deficit, the northern regions lived much better. As they say, they lived in communism back then. And the second positive expectation of NSR is the development of trade and including local food there. You know, since they develop. Okay, so people in the north, they are not for trade. Their products are not for trade, and the development of the NSR will make the trade possible. For example, when the shipping will be possible, it will give opportunities to export their products to the Russian trade or maybe to the international trade. It will, of course, develop the reindeer herding. It will develop fishing, not only as raw products, but as recycled products. And the third positive effect is development of the ethnic tourism. First of all, it is connected to the eastern peoples which inhabit Kamchatka and Chukotka. It is so-called cruise tourism, which is starting to develop nowadays. I doubted that this tourism will reach Yakutia, but still for people, indigenous people of Chukotka and Kamchatka, it is a reality. It is possible to talk about ethnic tourism nowadays by developing ethnic bases. Next slide, please. So these are the expectations and the questions of the indigenous people. However, indigenous people are somehow not included into the benefits. There is a world standard to however, there were no any consultations with the indigenous people on the development of the NSR. In the best case, several representatives of the indigenous people or representative of the Indigenous Peoples Association were invited to the conferences where they could discuss this matter. However, some people say that this topic doesn't include indigenous people. However, the development of the NSR, of course, will somehow affect the peoples that inhabit it, and there should be hold consultations. You should know that indigenous people are not against the NSR. They can suggest their ideas on how to develop the NSR. However, these are just our wishes and hopes. And the last slide. Yes, that's it. Thank you for your attention. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them, since the issue of indigenous people is very topical around the world and in different international events. I was very often asked a question of how do you have any consultations or any talks about the NSR? However, I always say, unfortunately, no, the NSR is only a strategic issue which only is on our territory. Thank you very much. However, we've run out of time. I've promised a discussion, so let's have a very short discussion. So now I give the floor to my co-moderator, Mr. Vladimir Galaktionovich. Please. Thank you, Dariana. Thank you for holding this section. You know, we can always improve something. We have people of science, people of law here, and people of marine research, and representatives of the indigenous people here. Everyone who is interested in development of the NSR as of the important Arctic route. So, Vyacheslav Ivanovich, thank you for your presentation. Could you tell me, please, how do you see the mechanism of the development? I'd like to ask for your advice. For example, I have an example. I was a vice governor, and the governor used to come to me and used to tell me, we are the Nenets people, we have the priority. We don't need your oil companies and people of business here. So let's develop education, healthcare on money of the reindeer herders. then we'll stop. Then we'll solve the question of guarding the environment. It is said that we don't have the mechanism of asking indigenous people for advice. I understand that we can't live without the indigenous people because they inhabited these regions from the very beginning. However, how do you see this mechanism of sharing the responsibilities as the head of your association? So how do you see it in short, please? So in short, we have social structures as Association of the Indigenous Peoples of the Forest and North. In some regions, each region which is touched by the NSR, we have social councils, we have representatives by administrations and by the governors. In general, we have these mechanisms of consultation. We have the method, we have the mechanism. However, the question is different. How can we How is NSR possible from the point of developing indigenous people? We don't talk about forbidding it. However, how can we use the benefits of developing NSR? For example, the Sahara Republic, in any case, I'm a realist and I can understand that, the Sahara Republic is sort of away from the NSR. We have two ports, Tiksi and the Zilony Cape, but they will be only like technical ports, the service ports. They will be the good example of including is the port Sabeta, where the government of Yamal, along with the organization of the reindeer herders of the world, they started to create the mechanism of using export of the reindeer meat through the NSR. So there are some points of connections there, and in some regions they still keep ignoring the indigenous people, or maybe not even ignoring, but they don't even have a thought of cooperation. Thank you. I'll have to agree with you. It is sort of a low culture of the law. Do you know Pavel Zelyuganov? Yes, I know who that is. I'm sorry for him. I left the government. However, the fact that you are good people, beautiful people, I have no doubt that we need to support you. In Nenets Autonomous Region, you have the quote. It is good in Nenets Autonomous Region. It is so good to be Nenets because you get all the subsidies, all the payments. And as for tourism, we have colleagues from Norway and other countries. And how do you think which port can become a port to deliver tourists? Do you have such point where you could organize touristic programs in Yakutia? So if we talk about that, I understand that Tiksi is very far away. It's not economically good, but the Cape in Srednyokolymsk, it will be very comfortable to use the port there. Nizhny Kolymsky region could become a touristic cluster since we have 5 different indigenous peoples there. It would be very interesting, not only from the ethno-cultural point of view, but we have Medvezhye Islands there, which became national park. We have other developing parks there that could, as a complex, be interesting for tourists. I would focus on these regions in Yakutia. Dariana, I think this is a very important information. You have the Ministry of Tourism Development in Yakutia, so it would be great if you could share it with them. And we could invite you with a report so that you could keep in mind that Yakutia is our partner and Aysen Nikolaev is our good friend. And in 2021, maybe in 2022, this year will become a year of cruise tourism development so that the ships could park there. We need to consult the Ministry of Transport. We need to take into consideration different laws and borders and coronavirus as well. And I have a question to Alexander Goritnikov. He had a great report. Unfortunately, he has left. I wanted to ask him one question, but if he left, then it's okay. It is great that we had such a great researcher, Valeria. Your supervisor, he had a very great report. And please send him my greetings to your supervisor, Valeria. And now, Sergei Brestkin. I didn't quite understand what about the organizational difficulty. How do you think, what is it in realization of your project, Northern Center, and the ice shipping? Could you please repeat, how do you think, which changes needs to be done in order to make this project successful? Oh, I can hear you. Before I couldn't hear you. So I'll repeat in short. Which changes needs to be done to include the changes into the administrative project so that this project could become more successful. In short, please. Could you repeat this for us? I'll share my opinion. So the main problem is that until now, this system of consisting of different four subsystems, that there is no connection between these subsystems in terms of hydrometeorological services. So all systems, they live in separately. Until we don't have this connection, the success will be very low. Now we have new rules of navigation that were established in 2018.
And Sergei Vladimirovich and Vladimir Galaktionovich, we only have 5 minutes until the end of the session. So very fast, I will finish. So in order for the interaction to be efficient, I think it's necessary to create that which already existed when the Soviet Union existed, when each of these territorial departments were there, and each groups of these territorial departments, they basically worked under the leadership of a head, and the head had a deputy, and this system was very efficient. And now it is necessary to recreate this. There is only like one main center and not two as there used to be. And the scientific research group may not need to go anywhere. They can work in the institute and continue to work there like it is now. Okay, Sergey Vladimirovich. So we are being... Okay, we need to finish fast. So I would like for all of us to exchange our contacts, to exchange our presentations, and to stay in contact, in touch with each other. Everything was very interesting, and you're doing a really good research. And now I propose for all of us, for Vladimir Kharlov, please 1 minute, your concluding remarks, and then you can give the floor to me, and I will do as well. Okay, so thank you, everyone. A big thank you to the Northern Forum, to us, to the land, Russia, for which we can be very useful. And the Northern Sea Route is going to give us benefits and wealth. We do not need to be nationalistic. We do not need to do any concessions. And luck to all of us, and I hope that we are going to meet like this again in the future. Thank you, Yakutsk. Yes. It was, yes, colleagues. We had a time limit of 2 hours, but we are now like much longer. And there have been many interesting reports, and they were really interesting. And of course, they are worth listening to and talking about. So what should we do now? We are going to send to all of you all of these presentations because they contain lots of information and data. And we also need to put forward proposals for the resolution of the forum. Okay, we have about 1 week to do this. Okay, please remind us. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye to everyone. Okay, goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Лорку дадите презентацию Камчатки и презентацию вот это они, которые...